What's going on, guys? We are breaking down the Bees. Bellator 264 coming from Upkinsville, Connecticut, one of their famous stomping grounds. And yes, this week, not just on the regular CJ MMA channel, we are on Pat Mayo Media Network. And yeah, great for them branching off. I know there's no UFC this week, so DraftKings Sportsbook, again, I always mention how great they've been to us. They want to continue the content, so we've decided to do the Bellator preview over there. Kind of a light card, only 9 fights altogether, and not Bellator's finest offering. But with Bellator, there's always a clear narrative. They always want one guy to win, and while the other guy's actually fighting on a one-fight deal and will probably be somewhere else for his next fight. So, I mean, we kind of follow that clear narrative. The thing is, are all the favorites going to win? Probably not. So which ones have the highest likelihood of shitting in our apple pie? Let's get them at the bottom, the confident plays at the top, parlay a few of them together, get some even money, get some plus money, and it'll be a good event altogether. So normally we start at the prelims and we work our way up, but because it's Bellator, nobody gives a shit about the prelims. We'll be doing the reverse order, starting from the main event and going on down from there. We got Gegard Mousasi, John Salter, 5-round main event for the 185-pound title. Listen, Gegard Mousasi is super legit. I mean, he's one of the finest talents in the world. The guy can do it all. He can strike. He's got an excellent submission game. His wrestling has come a long way. He's got good cardio. He's got championship experience. He is cast iron. Knocking this guy out, my God, good luck. I mean, I know Uriah Hall did it, the flying knee once upon a time, but that's the kind of shit it takes to knock out Gegard Mousasi. I mean, there's been a likeness to Fedor Emelianenko for a long time. Both super experienced, both super seasoned, both absolute just stone cold killers in there, emotionless, and yet they've got a plethora of skills. If there was one knock on him, because we always got to find how is this guy going to potentially shit in the pie, it's that he's 36 years old, right? At 36, maybe his skills starting to regress a little bit. Maybe his readiness to fight, his willingness to fight, his desire to fight, injuries are starting to pile up. Just that's the unknown. But luckily for him in this matchup, John Salter, also 36 years old. So yeah, what don't we like about Gegard Mousasi? Again, if you look at his recent run, especially under the Bellator banner, it's been nearly flawless. He does have one loss to Rafael Lovato Jr. and debatable loss. I mean, it's a majority decision, but very strong argument that Gegard Mousasi won that fight. This is one of the few guys that got released from the UFC on a run. Like, Bellator has a tendency to sign a lot of these guys that are coming off losses, whether it be a Gilbert Melendez, whether it be a Josh Thompson, whether it be a Josh Koscheck, whether it be a Lyoto Machida. They tend to, Chael Sonnen, and the list goes on and on, really. But when they sign guys, it's almost always they've got a name and they're at the tail end of their career. When he was in the UFC, he was coming off a 5-fight winning streak. He knocked out Thiago Santos at UFC 200. He knocked out Vitor Belfort, a known star. He got his revenge over Uriah Hall, just murdering him in the first round. He beat Chris Weidman with those knees from the clinch. Like, my God, just like a devastating knockout. And then walks and goes to Bellator. So we've got a premier talent, not just got a guy that's washed. And as far as fighting in Bellator, it's lesser competition, but he still managed to win over, I guess Shlemenko's a former champion. Rafael Carvalho is a former champion. Rory McDonald's a former champion, albeit he's a welterweight. Should have won that Rafael Lovato Jr. fight. Beat Lyoto Machida. Beat Douglas Lima. It's the best guys Bellator has to offer. I still think he's got something left in the tank. Flip side to that, John Salter, he's pretty much just the only guy. See, that's the problem with Bellator as opposed to the UFC. They just don't have the actual roster. So now that he's pretty much washed out, all of the former champions within the division, and even took in a super fight, 2 super fights. He fought Rory McDonald and Douglas Lima. Like, what is there left for him? And so that's why they're drumming up John Salter in the spot coming in. And Salter he actually does represent the one weakness outside of, what are we talking about? Age as a weakness. But the one weakness that Gegard Mousasi could potentially have in theory is his ground game. Not his ground game in terms of his grappling, but his takedown defense. I mean, we've seen guys like King Mo back in the day. They were able to take him down. They were able to control him. The problem there is that he spent so much time working on his wrestling to fill that hole. He's actually a pretty fine wrestler now himself. And I don't think that John Salter is going to be able to continuously get the fight to the ground. If he does get it to the ground, fair. He'll get it to the ground early, and I don't think he's got the submission game to submit Gegard Mousasi early. So therefore, this thing's going to start going into those later rounds. Gegard is going to start hopefully stuffing the takedown attempts, keep his fight standing. He's got better cardio. He's got better endurance. He's got better striking. And if he stuffs these takedowns, he's going to make it very difficult for John Salter. And again, John Salter's a fine talent himself, but he was a guy that washed out of the UFC on the basis of a very poor run. And when he came over to Bellator, again, he's excellent resume in terms of wins, but Claudio Anichiaro, Jason Ratcliffe, Chidi Njokwani, the lesser talented of the Njokwani brothers, Castellanos is not bad, but he's a no-name fighter. Andrew Capel, Andrew Capel is definitely a no-name fighter. And again, it takes him 3 rounds to take Capel out of there. This is not a good spot for him. This fight wouldn't be otherwise being made other than Bellator needs a headliner. This is a pretty soft-looking card altogether. Mousasi's coming off a near year-long layoff, so let's bring him back into the market with hopefully a nice, spectacular win. And we don't really have anybody else to challenge right now. John Salter's eager, wants to fight. Give it to him. Odds reflect pretty much exactly what I'm telling you. You've got Gegard Mousasi as a -300 favorite. Come back on John Salter at +230. But again, I mean, this is going to be a top ticket parlay piece simply because it is the main event. So we can always hedge out, assuming we're going to get that far. But also, listen, he's 3-1 for a reason. I mean, he's got the championship back class. He's the champion within the division. He's got the superior skill set. And even though John Salter has done an excellent job of reinventing himself in the Bellator promotion, in this particular matchup, he seems to be outgunned. And so we got to go with Mousasi to retain, but we will hopefully have that hedge out option if we want to take it. Moving on to the co-main event. I believe the co-main event is listed. It is, Andre Koreshkov versus Sabah Hamasi. So we've got another guy in Andre Koreshkov who is a former champion within the division. He was the welterweight champ for the promotion. And listen, this guy's been pretty much a very solid talent his entire career. He started off 14-0, picked up very solid wins. Lyman Good, Mary Zaromskis, Jordan Smith, Derek Krantz, Casey Uscola, who's now in jail for good reason. It was a pretty solid run until he runs into Ben Askren. No problem. Ben Askren in those days was an absolute problem for people. He rebounds, 6-fight winning streak, beat Douglas Lima to win the title, defends against Benson Henderson, just crushes him. This guy's looking at the top of his game. Loses the the rematch to Douglas Lima, loses the trilogy match to Douglas Lima, and then had a split decision loss to Lorenz Larkin. That's kind of created this perception that like he's just not elite anymore. He's not that good anymore. But he's only 30 years old. This is officially his first time fighting for Bellator since the Lorenz Larkin fight, which is 2 years ago. But he has had a tune-up fight in Russia 6 months ago, won by first-round armbar, looked good doing so. Again, he's still only 30. I would reckon that he probably had some nagging injuries. The guy's got a lot of experience for his age as well, so maybe a little bit of time off would have done him some good. He's still an elite-level guy, and I think that he's still got very strong durability. Listen, Lorenz Larkin is a high-level fighter. You know, he's an elite-level competitor. It's a close split decision loss to him. The 2 losses to Douglas Lima, again, that's the former champion. And up until he got recently exposed, I guess, was looking like someone that could easily go over to the UFC and do a lot of damage in their weight class as well. So they're not shameful losses. That's what happens when you compete against the elite of the elite. In this fight with Sabah Hamasi, he's not taking on anything near the elite of the elite. But Sabah Hamasi still is dangerous. He can get you sleeping. He can get you off guard. He always shows up in great shape physically, not cardiovascular-wise. But like the dude's a former male stripper. You don't just show up fat and sloppy on the stage now, do you? No. You show up ripped up, and he does show up ripped up. He's got heavy, heavy hands. He trains at American Top Team. He's been at American Top Team for well over a decade now. So you know he's routinely grinding in there with some of the best guys in the world. Just he himself is enhancement talent. He's brought into the gym, you know, to give you guys rounds, to build up confidence. And as far as his Bellator run goes, you give him a mid-level guy, I don't know. I shouldn't say mid-level guy. He himself is a mid-level guy, but he is capable of going out there and performing great feats because he's a one-round guy. And the pressure that he brings to you in that one round is huge. He's kind of reinvented himself ever so slightly. The last number, we'll start with the Curtis Millender fight, which, you know, it's just last August, so 1 year ago. He goes to a wrestling-heavy game plan. Hadn't really seen that from him very often, but Curtis Millender absolutely cannot wrestle. So Sabah Hamasi shows off some good ring IQ, takes it to the wrestling, takes him down, grinds him. Cardio looked a little bit improved. His wrestling looked much improved, but he took the path of least resistance. The Bobby Volker fight, Volker's in his 40s, very stiff, very rigid, gets a knockout there as expected. It's that Paul Semtex Daly fight. Is Semtex over the hill? Is Paul Daly done with? Paul Daly is still a vicious striker, you know, a guy that probably is past his best days, but is still capable of going out there and pulling off some big, devastating KOs. Sabah Hamasi was all over him. This thing would have been a 10-8 round. He routs Paul Daly. The ref's looking at it multiple times. Sabah's looking as good as ever. He came into that fight on a 4-fight winning streak. If he knocks out Paul Daly in the first round of that last fight, runs it to 5 straight, are we not looking at this guy as a serious contender? He does have legitimate skills, but then there's that one kryptonite in his game. Paul Daly survived the first round. And in the second, Sabah's tired. He blew his load in the first. You know, he went for the kill. He thought he had Daly out of there. He got antsy in the pantsy, tried to get the finish. And as soon as that finish didn't materialize, he gasses out huge. And in return gets knocked out in the second round by Paul Daly, who, as he mentioned, still capable of pulling off a little bit of magic. I think Andre Koreshkov is just too durable to get knocked out in the first round by Sabah Hamasi. And once Sabah starts to slow down, he himself should be able to work his way back into this. He's got decent enough striking, but it's more of a grind. You know, if he can start forcing the takedowns on Sabah, take Sabah down, he'll be able to have a lot of success. He's also got a decent leg kick on him as well. I think that's a good game plan with Saba because he's so wild, so aggressive. You don't want to throw them early because he's going to look to counter off that. But once he starts to slow down a little bit, he's going to start becoming immobile. You chop that lead leg, he'll just be stationary. Once he's stationary, Koreshkov should be able to go out there and have his way with him. Again, looking at the lines, I'm not telling you anything the lines maker is basically not insinuating himself. They've got Andre Koreshkov as a minus 410 favorite, comeback and Saba Hamasi plus 300. When you compare that to the main event, you know, Gagar's world class and pretty much has Salter beat all over, and he's a 3-1. In this fight with Koreshkov, yeah, he's got him outclassed. He's got him beat everywhere. But Saba at least presents that what if he lets his hands go in the first round, what if he clips him. But I would reckon that the difference between Saba Hamasi and Douglas Lima in the striking department is pretty big. And again, at 30 years old, he's not washed. It's not like he's having a full 2-year-long lamp. He just came back 6 months ago in Russia, so the ring rust shouldn't be as apparent. And again, he's a guy that's fought 5 rounds, so that cardio advantage in a 3-round fight will be great against a guy like Saba Hamasi who, listen, what's a stripper's set? You know, 5 minutes at the most. You get up there and shake it. Even a private lap dance, five minutes, that could be like 5 songs at $20 a song, $100. $100, who's paying Saba Hamasi $100? So in the club, he's not dancing for a half hour. It's not like he's built to go long time. He's built to go short periods of time. And again, I think beyond a decent first round, Koreshkov should be able to pull over. So I'm a little bit hesitant on Andre Koreshkov as a top ticket play, but he's going to be up there, let's face it. Magomed Magomedov versus Raufeon Stots. You got Magomed Magomedov. Everybody should know his story by now. 18-1, and he is the only man to cleanly defeat Peter Yan when you consider the Aljamain Sterling fight is what it is. He's a stud in every aspect of the word, and again, he's coming in as a minus 460 favorite over Raufeon Stots, who's plus 330. Raufeon Stots is he's dangerous in that he can wrestle, right? What Magomed Magomedov wants to, grind on him a little bit. Raufeon Stots should be able to snuff that out. He himself likes to grind guys up against the cage. Maybe he has some success there. For me, it's like his lack of finishing ability is going to be his detriment here, is that he can have small spots of wrestling success or grinding success, but his striking doesn't have enough power to really get Magomedov's attention, and his submission game is not good enough to catch Magomedov in something in transition. The thing with Magomed Magomedov is that he just doesn't stop. He just keeps coming at you for the entirety of the fight, and he's one of these Russians that can, in fact, do it all. He can strike, he can wrestle, he's got 5-round cardio, he's got a big public backing behind him. He's 18-1 for a reason. And again, you look at those 18 wins and you can make the argument like everybody else, well, it's soft Russian competition, but he beat Peter Yan the first time, split decision in a 5-round fight. And I encourage you to go back and watch that fight because it is an absolute delight. Fight of the year as far as I'm concerned. You see how advanced this guy's skill set is. 5 hard rounds of Peter Yan, and then 2 fights later, he loses to Peter Yan, unanimous decision in the rematch, a 5-round rematch. The guy's pretty dope. I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't be in the UFC. Bellator beat them with a punch. They've signed him up. And I see him doing some pretty big things within their organization. His debut officially for Bellator was in Matos, and not probably as good as the debut as we would have liked to have seen, considering, he came in as a minus 370 favorite. He had Matos outgunned. Fight goes the distance, but you see his wrestle's on point. You see his cardio's on point. And that fight with CJ Hamilton, rocks him in the first round, rocks him in the second round, chokes him with a rear naked choke. Much better performance from him. Still improving all the time out. He's 29 years old. Dagestani fighter. His name's physically Magomed Magomedov. You want to bet against him? Yeah, not me. Raufeon Stots, again, it's no discredit to him. I just think that the way he matches up in this particular fight is not going to go extremely well. He's more of a decision guy. And when you look at his list of of opponents, Josh Hill, Keith Lee, they're his size, if not a little bit smaller, and they represent the same styles. Keith Lee, the younger brother of Kevin Lee from the UFC, he's definitely a lot smaller. He's fought at 125 pounds, and he does come from this wrestling boxing background. Raufeon Stots, better wrestler, better boxer, snuffs him out, wins the decision. Him versus Josh Hill, Canada's Josh Hill, he's obviously a better wrestler, right? He's a slightly better striker, maybe not even a better striker, but he pushes him up against the cage. That's not on the table here against Magomedov. Holding him up against the cage, probably not going to have enough success beyond a minute or two of the round. As far as the striking goes, yeah, I think he's got him beat. Magomedov's got him beat in that department as well. As far as the cardio goes, again, it's only a 3-round fight. And this dude's been going 5 rounds at a high level with Peter Yan. So Bellator knows what they're doing. They're building this guy up. He's probably only this fight and then within a fight or two away from a title shot, one would assume. And the only reason he signed with Bellator as opposed to going to a UFC is because they're giving him good money. So they're not going to kill a whole lot of time. But in the meantime, he will pick off some decent wins like this. And I think that he's got Raufeon Stots' number. So even though it is a big price tag, and I will admit it is a fairly big price tag, you got to pay to play. That's one of those situations. Davion Franklin versus Everett Cummings. Minus 235 for Davion Franklin, plus 188 versus Everett Cummings. Everett Cummings at least looks interesting as far as like a straight up dog play because he's 15-0. Like what? How many guys in MMA are 15-0? How many guys are 15-0 taking on a guy that are 3-0 and they're coming in as a plus 188 underdog? And that's pretty much the story of this one. Like it's a super salty 15-0, almost a disrespectful 15-0. He actually went 5-0 as an amateur, right? Those opponents were 0-0, 0-0, 3-1, 0-0, 0-0. 3 of those 5 guys, the 0-0s, never fought again. So it's like not only were they bums at the time, they just weren't even real fighters. His pro career, he kicks it off with a 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 0-1. At least the guy had fought previously. 0-1, 3-4, 2-1, 7-16, 12-7, 2-8, 0-5, 9-11, 7-4. The 7-4 Ben Beeb is for Bellator, and it's in 2018. So he would have come into Bellator with a 12-0 record, knocked out Ben Beebe in 2 minutes and 12 seconds into the first round. We've got an undefeated heavyweight, the nice-looking record, and Bellator didn't even care to bring him back. He fought twice more since then in 2018, picked up a no contest because of downward elbows, and he picked up a win over this Son Davis by rear naked choke in the second round. So you can say he's 15-0, but you could also say he's 3-0, 4-0, like, you know, of guys with winning records, of guys that actually had a pulse that were going to fight back. He has defeated them, but not great. You can see his last fight on the line versus Son Davis for Gladiator Challenge against another one of these low-level outdoor events. He's got the guy outsized, but he doesn't look particularly good. In the first round, he does get the takedown, ends up on top, looks to put his hooks in, take the back, and it's just super sloppy, man. This Son Davis guy just turns into him, ends up on top. And when Son Davis is on top, this kid does not. I mean, Everett Cummings off his back, he does nothing. Not a guy does anything, but Everett Cummings basically just lies there and accepts it. He does not create any space. He doesn't shrimp. He's got no hip movement. It's not good. And again, he's taking on a very low level guy in Son Davis, so not good. Second round, he comes out. He is the fresher of the two guys. This time, he does end up on top. And once he ends up on top, he eventually does get both hooks in and grab that same rear naked choke. But it was some sloppy work for a guy that would have been 14-0 at the time. Has had a winning streak going back to his amateur career since 2010. He hasn't lost a fight in 11 years. And with his amateur career and his pro career, he's won 20 fights in a row. And yet he's making rookie mistakes on a low-level show against nobody. How is it that no promotion ever came calling for this guy? How is it that LFA never came? How is it that, you know, the Contender Series never came? How is it that quite literally nobody has given a shit about this guy? He's in California. He's just spending it on the lowest of the low, taking the lowest of the low fights. Did fight once for Bellator, won, and they didn't even bother to bring him back. So now they're bringing him back here. And the clear narrative is to feed him to Davion Franklin because you know what? Got a 15-0 record. Looks good. Going to be undersized in this matchup, and I think he's going to have a lot of problems with Davion Franklin. Now, Franklin is green, right? He should be fighting a guy that's got 15 pro fights. But considering the majority of those 15 pro fights weren't kind of real fights, yeah, I suppose you could throw him in there with a guy of this likes. Davion Franklin was a junior college national tournament qualifier. He also eventually transferred over to a D2 program and played collegiate football as well. So he can wrestle. He was a football player. He's a good enough athlete. Transitions over to MMA, and he wins this like scholarship. Essentially, he's at Greg Jackson's camp, one of John Jones' training partners. John Jones has got a lot of positive things to say about this guy. Great athlete, solid wrestler, great work ethic, and he wins this contract thing. It's like a sponsorship where Bellator gives you some money, Jackson gives you some money, you train full time, and you fight with Bellator. So he makes his pro debut for Bellator, beats J.W. Kaiser first round, ground and pound. If you know J.W. Kaiser, you know what's up. But it was an effortless win, no problem. That second fight with Ras Hilton, it went the full, I think really go the full 3 rounds. It's a technical decision, but the judges awarded him 30-27. Again, he didn't look great in that fight, but at least it showed that he could go a few rounds. I don't want a guy that's a one-rounder because, again, with Everett Cummings, I mean, how did he win his last fight? Didn't look good in the first round, but he came out for the second round, had some gas in the tank. If Franklin comes out here and gets tired after that first round of work, comes into the second, well, now all of a sudden, Dog's got a shot. But at least in that Ras Hilton fight, he shows that he could go a few rounds, even though when he was fatiguing, he was only 2-0 at the time, growing experience, back to the gym, back to making improvements. And then his third fight with Bellator, they gave him Tyler King, who again has 20 pro fights, fought in the UFC, fought in the Ultimate Fighter, fought a couple big name opponents around the world, former collegiate football player as well, has big time experience. But he's awful, man, awful. Looks like Bambi's mama on ice. Like his legs are just, he's been knocked out 7 or 8 times in his pro career, and like bad knockouts, usually in under 2 minutes. But the way he stands, head right up in the air, no athleticism for a football player. It's a foregone conclusion that he beats a guy like that. So there's not much I can take away from that fight. I would have liked to have seen him fight another one where he had to go a few rounds just to ensure the cardio is on point. But we're going to have to take a flyer and assume that it very much is. When you look at so far on this card, we got a lot of big favorites, right? Mousasi's a 3-1. Koreshkov's a -410. Magomedov's a -460. Davion Franklin at -235 because he's a lot greener and there's more of that unknown. But at least it's more of a playable line. And when we do parlay some of these together, that's something. Even at -235, that at least help juice it up, right? So Franklin is a legitimate prospect out of the legitimate camp, 3-0, building it up the right way, collegiate wrestling background, collegiate football background, versus a guy in Everett Cummins who there's a very good reason why he hasn't been on anybody's radar. And I would say this is the reason, right? They're going to use him as a feeder opponent. And that's exactly what they're doing. Moving on, we have Ty Gwerder versus Kazmarat Bastayev. The price is big in my opinion. Ty Gwerder at -260, Kazmarat Bastayev at +205. So this one could be a trap line. Definitely feels a little bit dangerous to me. The reason why Bastayev is such a big underdog is for a guy that has a menacing sounding name. He's not your typical Russian fighter. First of all, he's 6'6" and he stands all of it. Like his head is straight up in the air. He's got a very bad tall man defense, and it is to his detriment. Whereas a lot of these Russian fighters train out of Dagestan or Chechnya, or they make the big move to one of these, big Russian camps, or they leave Russia. They almost always go to American Kickboxing Academy or American Top Team. No, in his case, he ends up in Nebraska, spends a little time in California. Again, he's not your typical Russian, right? And then, yeah, he took the same route that we saw with Everett Cummins. I mean, his debut, 0-0. Next fight, 0-0, 0-0, 3-1, 3-1. Comes over to America, loses to a 16-10 opponent, and then goes back to 3-9. 1-0, 0-0. Now, when he does take step-ups, he gets knocked out, and that's the other reason why he's a big underdog here. Mikey Gomez choked him out in the second, but then when he fought Alonzo Menefield, now in the UFC, Menefield was 2-0 at the time versus an 8-1 Bastayev, and he beat some 4 minutes into the first round when Bastayev's eyes messed, and then they called it. Next fight against Blake Troop, dude, 6-5. This is a very winnable fight for Bastayev. No, he gets knocked out 2 minutes and 11 seconds into the first round of an LFA fight. Again, got caught, didn't look good. He eventually made it on the Contender Series. That's his last fight. It's against Phil Hawes, most recent one, and it was just about a year ago. And he starts off okay in the sense that he's throwing some kicks, he's throwing some punches, he's trying to mix it up. But one, not only is his chin way up in the air and it's just easy money for Phil Hawes, his lead leg just doesn't move. It's planted, and Phil Hawes torches it. This thing only goes on for 1 minute and 18 seconds. And in that minute, 18 seconds, he gets clobbered with an overhand right, has his lead leg completely kicked out from under him, and then he gets dropped and knocked out by the second overhand right that lands. And that's the performance. This is now the third time he's been knocked out. All 3 of those times were in the first round, and he had previously been submitted in the second round of his other fight. These are his fights. Last fight, first round, Phil Hawes. One before that, 2 minutes, 10 seconds, first round. Before that, 53 seconds, first round. Before that, 2 minutes, 11, first round. 4 minutes and 1 second, first round. 38 seconds, first round. 32 seconds of the first round. 20 seconds of the first round. And that Mikey Gomez fight, when he got choked out, second round, that was 6 years ago. That was the last time he got out of the first round. So, like, massive, massive red flags left, right, and center. Can't take a punch. Has terrible defense. Probably is a one-round fighter. Not training out of a scary Russian gym. You don't want no part of this guy. But here's the thing. Because we can say all that negative shit about him, it's reflective in the line. And it's like you're overlooking him. And I run into this issue a lot. It's on the UFC side of things, right? It's not that one guy's a 3-1 favorite because he's so good. One guy's a 3-1 favorite because the other guy's just real bad. But that doesn't make fighter A good. And so now you need to pay a 3-1 price tag on a guy who's just not that good. And that's what we have in Ty Gwerder. Not saying he couldn't be good, but currently at this point in time, -260 feels like just a little bit too steep. So what's positive about him? Well, he's only 26 years old. He's making improvements. He's full-time out of Las Vegas, Extreme Couture. He's got some of the best training partners in the game. He's grinding routinely day in and day out. His head coach is Eric Nixick, who, as you see, is just lighting the world on fire right now, training some of the best guys. He also gets some striking with Ray Sefo. He's going to have solid career opportunities. He starts off his career solid enough, 4-0, right? But then he runs into this Joseph Creer at Bellator. Creer's a pretty stout grappler, and he's able to take him down, control him for the most part, and win the decision. Fair enough. His next fight against George Tokos, good performance, wins the first 2 rounds, comes on strong in the third. He had hit Tokos with some hard shots. Tokos took him. Tokos never really went down. In the third round, he eventually cracks the code, beats him. And then they throw him in there like less than 2 months. It was like 5 or 6 weeks later. They throw him in there with Dalton Roasted. Now, if you know me, I love me some Dalton Roasted. The guy is built like a brick shithouse. His striking is coming along, work in progress, but big, heavy hands on him. Solid wrestler, good cardio. Seems like he's a pretty durable guy. Just desire to win. Yeah, huge fan of his work. And in that fight, I mean, he just got taken down routinely. He's a southpaw, tricky enough southpaw. But once Roasted decides I don't want to strike with him anymore, he just takes him down, no problem. What I will give this kid Guerder is that, 1, he kept working his way back up, never quit on himself. 2, Roasted did land a couple of heavy right hands on the chin, and he's able to take it. And again, this is another fight that's gone 3 rounds. See, that's the difference between him and Bastayev. Bastayev, all these fights are first rounds, and this kid went 3 rounds of career. He finished Torkos in the third. He went 3 rounds with Dalton Rosta. So yeah, if this was a live betting opportunity, even if he didn't start off well, the narrative is that he's going to come back and win the second or third. And I could buy into that. But realistically, he's 1-2, or he's 1-2 in Bellator. He's still only 26, coming off a loss. Doesn't look like he has any X factors to his game. Doesn't have an advanced or refined skill set. Is still young. And Bastayev has at least fought in some good guys. Menifield's in the UFC now. You know what I mean? Phil Haas is in the UFC now. Keeps costing me money, goddamn Phil Haas. At least he's fought a higher level of competition and has the experience. He's also 6'6", which is super tricky. If this kid can't figure out the range and he just stands back and doesn't utilize those leg kicks properly, who knows? And Bastayev is also coming off a year-long layoff, so he probably didn't shore up any of the mistakes in his game. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he probably made any adjustment, but you never know. So minus 260, I can't tell you that we're going to take a dog shot on Bastayev here. I can't. What I am going to tell you is, even though this guy's minus 260, Ty Guerder, he's going to be on the low end of these PRPs because I just have a bad feeling that he's overvalued. And if that was the potential apple pie shitter, we don't want to be too heavy into it. So that's kind of my thoughts on Ty Guerder. And of course, before we continue, we've got to get to everybody's favorite read because, as I mentioned, none of this made possible without our great friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So go over there and check them out. And honestly, I think you're going to be very happy with what you see. Everyone's favorite time of year is right around the corner, college football season. To celebrate, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook, is now putting new players in the center of the action with $200 in free bets instantly if you bet $1 or more on any college football game. Take advantage of this limited time offer now. You heard right. DraftKings is giving all new players $200 in free bets instantly when you place a bet of $1 or more, any college football game. It does not matter. Head over to DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Check out all the great promotions and daily odds that they are offering. DraftKings Sportsbook is safe, secure, reliable, located right in the United States, so it's easy to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code DOP to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet or more on any college football game. That's promo code DOP to get your free $200 in free bets instantly for limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Remember, you must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for deep details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Moving on, we got Bam Sorensen taking on Roberto Samad. Maybe this one's kind of, I can't say it's a trap line because it's only minus 146 Pam Sorensen. It's hard to get the best read on it. Pam Sorensen at her best, big fan of her work. I mean, grinder, solid size for the weight class, good durability. I wouldn't say 5-round cardio, but can push a decent enough pace for 3 rounds and has high level experience to her name. Beyond a decent 5-1 amateur career, only lost to Amber Leibrock. You got a named opponent, right? In her second pro fight, she beats Nico Montana, who then very technically, went on to win a UFC title. Loses to Shayna Young, went on to the UFC. Brenda Gonzalez, solid. Jesse Rose Clark went to the UFC. Adriana Gomez, very solid. Felicia Spencer went to the UFC. Caitlin Young, pioneer of the sport. So she's mixed it up with a very solid level of competition. She's also, again, like I said, decent size for this weight class, having competed the majority of her career at 145 pounds. When she was Invictus, she was solid, and I believe she is, I say currently is the featherweight champion over there. She won her last fight against Caitlin Young for the 145-pound title. COVID happened. She wasn't able to get a fight all of 2020, and now we're in 2021. So quietly, she's kind of lost out on nearly 2 years of her career, and those 2 years have moved her from 33 to 35. So will that be a problem? It could be. Will she start to show signs of regression? Again, could be. It's all that's a little bit worrisome, but what we have seen from her is that she's got excellent top control, heavy when she's on top, decent enough wrestling, can grind through the pocket. That should all yield a lot of success. Against Roberta Rovell, yeah, she's 33 years old. Don't know a ton about her because she starts her pro career in 2013. Right? That's 8 years ago. Now, 8 years ago, she wins in the first round against an 0-0 opponent. Follows it up beating an 0-0 opponent. Follows it up by beating an 0-0 opponent. Follows it up by beating an 0-0 opponent. So she's 4-0, and that's the duration of 1 year, 2013 to 2014. In 2015, she signs with Bellator. She fought once for Bellator, fighting Julia Budd, and Julia Budd beat her. Julia Budd's another, similar to Pam Sorensen, big, physical girl, is a natural 145-pound fighter, and can just grind on you and get those takedowns when need be. So there is a path to victory, at least there for Sorensen. It's when she loses to Julia Budd. She then takes 4 years off. So she was 4-0, beating 4 0-0 opponents, signed to Bellator, brought in as cannon fodder, lost a decision, got grinded on, took 4 years off, came back in 2019, won on a PFL show at 155 pounds, and then was supposed to fight Sarah Kaufman. She missed weight at 155 pounds. So cut from PFL, and now she's with Bellator, and it's been 2 years since the PFL fight. So effectively, she's had one fight since the 2015 fight with Julia Budd, and it was a win over a 3-5 opponent at 55. So this fight's at 45. So she just missed weight at 55 last time. I don't think she's great at making weight. Sorensen's 35. That was a red flag. But this girl's 33. She's not defeated all of those UFC veterans. She's not mixed it up with some of the sport's best fighters. She's not a former Invicta world champion. And she's had one fight in the last 5 years. And it was against a 3-5 opponent. So why would you want any fucking part of that? But it's women's MMA, and I could see it being a lot greasier than it needs to be. But at minus 146, Pam Sorensen is the play. Hopefully she gets it done. We're not going to have too much on her because, again, the reasons I've explained. But, I don't see why she goes out there and doesn't get this victory. Moving on, because we've had a couple canceled fights. Moving on, we officially got Justin Montalvo versus Kenley Lewis. It's going to be another big favorite status for Montalvo, who comes in at minus 235. Kenley Lewis plus 188. Again, I mean, Bellator is trying to advance one guy in their career, and the other guy, they know where he's at. Montalvo's 2-0. He's at a Matt Serra's gym over in New York with, Ray Longo, Matt Serra, all the guys, really, Chris Weidman, Aljamain, the whole cast of characters. And he looks to be in fairly good shape. Comes in here. He's 2-0 as a pro. Was knocked out both of those opponents, once in the first round, once in the second round. It looks like he's developing a game. He's a solid enough grappler. His striking's coming good. He's pretty good shape physically, but he's just young in his career at 2-0, and he's going through the building blocks. Kenley Lewis, meanwhile, he's out of Florida, and it just doesn't seem like he's really gotten much momentum in his career. I mean, looking at the tape on him, he seems to be a tad bit chinny, and also whenever he takes on any type of step up in competition, he just falters almost immediately. He doesn't also seem to have great cardio. I mean, the 2 fights that he's had that have gone to decision, he lost both decisions. And then in his last 2 fights for Titan FC, a legit organization, he got knocked out in the second round by Mike Lilly, and then knocked out in the second round again by Slava Borchev. Both of those fights, he's noticeably slowing down. So you've got a guy here that's got 6 pro fights versus a guy that's 2 pro fights. He's got the experience. He's mixed it up with a slightly better level of competition, and he has fought under a few bright lights before. But I would say that Justin Montalvo's out of a better camp. I mean, he's going through the building blocks. He's creating himself a better fighter. The one worry, though, again, because he's a minus 235 favorite, is as an amateur, and this isn't all that long ago, it's 2018, he got knocked out by a 2-5 fighter, knocked out in the first round. That same 2-5 fighter had also beaten him in his debut when the guy was 1-3. So that guy had his number, and that guy actually knocked him out in the first round. So is he himself chinny? I don't know. We haven't really seen him get chin checked. But in a fight coming in there with Kenley Lewis is in pretty good shape. He's got 6 pro fights, so he's got the experience advantage. And of his wins, he's got 2 of them by knockout, including 1 in the first round. They're all bum opponents. Listen, again, I think this is another one where it's spot on that Justin Montalvo probably is going to win this fight. Bellator would like Justin Montalvo to win this fight. But at minus 235, he's a 2-0, very green fighter. We don't know enough about him to have confidence that he's actually good. We just have enough confidence that he's better than this guy he's fighting. So it'll be lower on the PRPs, but Justin Montalvo is going to be the play. Sebastian Ruiz versus Jeffrey Glosner. You've got Jeffrey Glosner coming as a minus 240 favorite against Sebastian Ruiz at plus 192. This one, again, it's pretty much the exact same case. Is Jeff Glosner the better fighter? Yeah, should be. But you just don't know. So the one thing with Glosner is that let's just really talk about his Bellator debut. So he comes into Bellator, he's 2-1, he takes on Jalon Bates. Now, Jalon Bates is a problem. This guy is a legitimate prospect. Looks like he's got a superstar potential in his future. He looks like a really green A.J. McKee. Like, he's got the fundamentals and that long frame to do something, but A.J. McKee fought for Bellator for 5 years and racked up 17 fights before people figured out who he was. Bates could be the same thing. I mean, slow, steady, keep working on your craft, get a lot better. I didn't think Glosner looked all that bad against Bates. Glosner also comes from a collegiate wrestling background, but against Bates, he was just outgunned. On the ground, it looked like he was scrappy. It looked like he knew what he was doing. Again, he was just outgunned by Jalon Bates. But watching that fight, and I'm all in on Bates, yeah, we won. Yeah, but it wasn't a walk in the park. You know, Glosner actually looked like he had some legitimate skills. Bellator will sign guys to 1-fight deal. So that was his 1-fight deal. After that, he does get released. He goes back onto the regional scene, takes on this Scott Dixon, who's a bum, and he submits him in the second round, right? Does what he needs to do. Fair enough. Now Bellator calling again. He's coming into this spot with Ruiz, and Ruiz is not, he's a Peruvian striker, you know, decent enough kickboxer, but he's not a wrestler. And I would say that Glosner's collegiate wrestling background should be enough to go out there, secure these takedowns, out-grapple him on the ground. It looked like his cardio was pretty on point, so I don't think 3 rounds should be a problem. But at minus 240, he should just absolutely go out there and walk right through him. I think when you consider he's got a winning record and a collegiate wrestling background, it's easy to fade a guy that's 2-3 and really hasn't shown you much. But Sebastian Ruiz isn't a complete walkover. So this kid hit my radar back in 2018. He fought in Montreal. I guess it was outside of Montreal, but it was in Quebec, Canada at TKO 43. He comes in 1-0. Nobody from Peru with a striking background, 1-0, ends up in Quebec taking on Jesse Arnett. Now, Jesse Arnett's 14-4. He was offered a Aljamain Sterling fight in the UFC, or he was offered a couple fights in the UFC. Both times he couldn't get out of his own TKO deal. He's a 2-time, like a 2-division world champion in Canada. I shouldn't say world champion, but Canadian champion. He's a stud. He wrestled collegiately out in Alberta. He's got a BJJ black belt. He's got very strong submission game. Hell, he's beating guys like Derek Minner by first-round submission. The guy attacks the neck. He's coming off a fight with Ray Borg his last time out, where he went to the decision in Abu Dhabi. The guy's an absolute stud. And this Ruiz kid at 1-0 came over and fought 14-4 Jesse Arnett. Made no sense. But he did. And I'll be honest, in the first round, he didn't look all that bad. He's a better striker than Arnett. Arnett was playing with his food. In the second round, Arnett says, screw it, takes him down, catches the neck, chokes him out. The next time I seen him at TKO, he takes on Louis Jourdain. Well, Louis Jourdain is the younger brother of Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain, of course, currently in the UFC. So Louis is not a walkover as well. That's a good fight, but Louis beats him. And then his last fight, Mike Kimball for Bellator. Kimball's a bust, but was supposed to be a highly touted prospect that Bellator had a ton of faith in. In fact, I would imagine they don't have a line for it. But Ruiz would have came in as a big underdog in that spot as well. And he loses a competitive split decision. So that's kind of the thing with Ruiz. He's always brought in to lose, right? And yet he always does a lot better than you think he's going to do. He did a lot better against Jesse Arnett than I thought he was going to do. He did a lot better against Louis Jourdain than I thought he was going to do. He did a lot better against Mike Kimball than I thought he was going to do. So now against Jeff Glosner, it's like Glosner should be able to go out there with the wrestling. It's wrestler versus kickboxer. So Glosner should be able to go, get the takedowns, hold him down, outgrind him on the ground. But if Glosner starts to get fatigued at any point and this fight gets back standing, Ruiz is going to be all over him. And at a low level, a guy with 5 fights, we see it all the time. He's got a wrestling advantage. He goes out there, and after the first round, he's tired. And now the takedowns become sloppy. And now it's a sloppy brawl. And the sloppy brawler on the other side at plus money comes through and wins. So initially, I want to make Ruiz my first underdog shot on the card. Again, what do we got? All favorites at this point. A lot of them are big favorites. Somebody's going to shit in the apple pie. And at minus 240, even though I don't mind Glosner, I was thinking, geez, man, that might be the guy. but I'm still a little 50-50 on that one. If I don't make that one the official underdog play, the last fight on the card, Orlando Mendoza versus John McNeil, that one will be our first underdog play. Orlando Mendoza is a -136 favorite. John McNeil is a +110. Again, it's basically a dog or pass situation. But with this Orlando Mendoza, not a big fan of his work. He seems to have some decent power in his hands, but comes out of a weak enough regional scene over in New York. He was 3-0 as an amateur. This is officially his professional debut. When you look at him against this like Dale Menendez, guy's clearly on juice, by the way, he just doesn't look great. He's got salty pepper hair, even though he's only 30 years old. He's a good counter puncher, and he seems relaxed. He seems to have some natural punching power in that right hand, but he just looks like he's ready to get exposed. And then in his next fight as an amateur against this Mike Basile, who's 3-3, he squeaks up a split decision. I just don't think he's the most talented guy going, and yet he's having a Bellator debut here as a favorite. Again, he's out of a smaller team in New York, and just not a huge fan of him. This John McNeil, again, we can shit on a lot of his body of work as well, but looking at the tape, this guy's big, man. This guy's big, and he looks to be in pretty good shape. He's super top heavy. Like, you know, his upper body's a lot bigger than his lower body, but he appears to be a big guy. This fight is scheduled to be at 185 pounds. Sorry, it's a catchweight of 195. That's even more interesting to me. This fight is a catchweight of 195. Orlando Mendoza has competed at 185, so he's going to be the smaller guy, 6 foot, 185. When you look at this John McNeil, his last fight was a catchweight of 195, right? The fight before that, catchweight of 195 again. Who gives these guys all these catchweights of 195? But they're doing it for him because he can't make 85. Too big for that. The fight before that, wouldn't you know it, 205. And almost all the fights before that one, 205. So he's a big dude. And as a 205er, he still looked big. Now that he's fighting at catchweights of 195, he looks pretty big. And this is a fight at 195. They're doing it for him. Hey, man, can you fight at 85? No, I can't make that. Well, what about 205? I don't really want to. What about 195? They're doing it for him. Whereas Orlando, he's the one that's going to be coming up and giving up those 10 pounds. When you watch Orlando, he's a southpaw. Actually, he's orthodox, and John McNeil's a southpaw. He looks like he's a little more fluid, but he's a smaller guy in there. And even though he does have that natural counter-punching shot, he's going to be giving up length and size, I believe, to McNeil. McNeil is the southpaw. And when you look at the tape on him, we'll just talk about the last two fights because really, who gives a fuck? He's just he's another guy coming in here making his debut as a 3-2 amateur. But the last two fights, Tommy Lee Davis, split decision, Keenan Williams. This Tommy Lee Davis fight, loses a split. He looks awful. Oh, this guy is stiff. He is robotic. In the left hand, you see it coming from a mile out. He does not look particular. He's built. He looks good physically. But, like, as far as the skill goes, like, not refined at all. He does win the fight. Or, sorry, he loses the fight by split decision. I would probably agree with the assessment that he did lose the fight. It wasn't the world's worst performance. It's that he did not look like an advanced fighter in the slightest sense of the word. His very next fight, which happened nearly a year later against Keenan Willis, he knocks out Keenan Willis in the first round. And I will admit, he was using his weapons a lot better. He seemed a lot faster with his hands. That straight left down the pipe, awesome. You could hear his boxing coach the entire time, and they had a lot of faith in him. Touch him up, touch him up, touch him up. Pick your shots. Pretty much everything he was landing was money, but he wasn't just throwing the straight left. He'd throw the straight left and then a right hook right behind it. So again, you can see his boxing technique evolving in real time. 8 months prior against Tommy Lee Davis, he can't box for shit. And yet 8 months later, he's actually putting together two-piece boxing combinations. Fine. But that's his last fight, and it's in 2018. So he has not fought in 3 years, and he's coming in here as a 30-year-old man. I am going to take the crack that over those last 3 years, he's been in the gym, he's been making improvements. I know he's going to show up to the scales tomorrow and be looking good. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. He's going to show up. Yeah. He's going to show up to the scales tomorrow looking good. Can guarantee you that. It's whether or not he's made progression in the gym. The guy that we saw the last time out could give Orlando Mendoza problems, but Mendoza would probably slip something, counter him with the right hand, and put him down. The guy that could make improvements in the gym, come back here, use those southpaw tricks, use that size advantage, lean on this guy, and he comes out of a gym that's known kind of for their grappling as well. So I haven't really seen a ton out of him in the grappling department, but apparently he's got a decent submission game. All of that plays out for, like, why not take a shot on the underdog? So sadly enough, he's only a +110. Did we miss the line? Oh my God, we totally missed the line. He was a +185 to open, and you can get him right at this very moment at +110. So we fucked up. We missed the line. Well, I didn't fuck up. I mean, I just did the show late in the week, I suppose. The people that did get it at +185, you're probably seeing the same thing I'm seeing. good on you. You got yourself a nice little dog. We're going to get a slight dog. Would have felt a lot better at plus 185, but c'est la vie. What can you do? So unfortunately, we have 9 fights. We can go with 8 favorites and 1 underdog, this being the 1 underdog. You could maybe take Ruiz as that dog number 2, but I mean, the confidence is just not quite there. To build up a quick parlay so that you don't got to wait for Friday and miss even more lines, I would put Gegard Mousasi at the top because it's main event. We could always hedge out of that. I'm feeling like you put Koreshkov. I'm feeling like you put Magomedov. And that right there gets you plus 102. Those are your top guys. Below that, you are going to go with, I would say, Davion Franklin. And we would add, it's definitely going to start getting dicey for sure. I want to go Pam Sorensen. I just don't know if that's the move. You're getting plus 188 before you got to get real greasy, but then you're going to have to get real greasy. At that point, you know what? I would probably end up going Davion Franklin, and I would take the shot on this Ty Guerder, even though I don't like it. We're getting forced into it. That gives you 3-1. From there, you can add Pam Sorensen and Justin Montalvo, which gives you plus 857. And then from there, you've only got 2 shots left. So if you were to go Glosner and John McNeil, you're looking at a plus 2,700, which we hit a plus 2,700 on a Friday night Bellator. We're going to be super happy with that. And if you dropped Glosner and you went Ruiz and John McNeil, then you're looking at a plus 5,700. So, infinitely better price. I got a feeling that one of these bum fights at the bottom is going to be the one that hits. And luckily for us, those are the early fights in the card. I don't suggest that people chase their losses. But again, if for whatever reason you were to go too high on something early and it was to lose, your key plays are going to be later on in the night. That's where the majority of your investment is going to be. So the Bellator recap, or the Bellator preview, is obviously on Mayo Media Network, sponsored by DraftKings. Shout out to DraftKings. But if you want the PFL, it's so greasy. I don't even want to do it, but I will. It's going to be over on CJ MMA. And then maybe that's the move this week. Maybe the move is, instead of taking a lot of that PFL card, which is so greasy, probably got some stinky business going on, but maybe we just parlay some of the ones that we actually do like in with some of these Bellator plays and can juice it up even a little bit better. So hopefully I helped you with anything. If it was something you didn't know about one of these fighters, or just my take on something, or if you want to tag along, I will be tweeting out the official parlays come Friday. Also Bellator, because there's no UFC especially, they're probably going to release props. And if they're going to release props, then sweet. Why not have a shot at that as well? So I'll keep my eye open. If you've got any questions, if a line comes by your site, or if you see something, or if you have any advice for me, or you notice something that I didn't, or comments, concerns, questions, whatever, I'd love if they were in the comment section, because it helps Pat out. And, that's just a good reflection on me. But other than that, you can hit me up on Twitter at CJMMA. And I'll be happy to help you with anything you may need. So catch you guys on Friday, Bellator 264. Let's hopefully make it a good one. Bellator traditionally has been really good for us. So let's hopefully keep those positive, chalky parlay vibes going. Till the next time, good luck. Oh.